growth to everybody of all nations, all communities, all castes, all religions. This is important. Now we all are in new world order. So we need to plan our all strategies, our all dialogue for equal development, and it should be human centric. And that is why Africa and Asia is important, because we are having population and natural resources. If human-centric development policies will develop, we will give so much to whole world, not only to our countries. We can give to Europe. Now, what is the problem of Europe and NATO? They are at saturation level of their development. They are having very good institutions. But you know, you need production, you need food, you need education for all. That is their saturation point, because it is very expensive and it cannot be shared by everybody, to all human beings. This is the difference, and that difference is increasing day by day, year by year. This difference needs to be balanced. Here we are. Here BRICS is developing. BRICS is giving common consciousness and equal rights to everybody. So there is the importance of BRICS and BRICS institution which are developing. And I also would like to mention that Belt and Road Initiative of China is also changing new economy, because they are developing $40 trillion initiative, and already they did a lot of work on it. And if European communities will come on this project, then whole Asia, Africa, CIS countries, Russia and Europe can connect on this. So this is a old Silk Route where India was very active in ancestor time. Now China is making a balance between all Asian countries, and they are developing Belt and Road Initiative. And this is a new bridge for economic development for global South and Eastern world. Thank you very much. And so many other institutions are developing. So there is a very big scope for European institutions and European organizations, those who are working at multinational level. So multinational level, you should not work only to make the profits. Absolutely. Now you need to come and do alliance and share your profits also. So all humans should get the benefit of this companies and multinational system. This is what we are working at people-to-people level and human-centric development. Thank you.
Very imperative, which you have highlighted the feasibility of the world enjoying in totality from the endowment of every nation through international cooperation. While you were actually highlighting some of those points, it came to mind that what is actually stopping us from attaining the milestone, some sort of what we can call like global governance lapses, and that is the question I will appreciate if you elaborate more on that, Enrique, how global governance lapses, especially as far as multilateral institutions are concerned, is helping to derail this transformation process that the world is engaging already or has already engaged in the 21st century, and what parameters can be adopted by the various stakeholders to correct such, so we can navigate the scope peacefully, without infringement of sovereignty, without having too many diplomatic feuds and even, you know, a lot of contestations along geopolitical lines.
Well, we have to take into the look one very important concept in geopolitics. Sure. There is unipolar world order and multipolar world order in the process of emergency. What this means? The globalist Western world means unipolar world. So, in their mind, they are the best, and the others are simply the rest, are the almost Western world. So This means that there is no chance to negotiate anything if one part of the presidents in the world believe themselves as the most progressive, most superior part in the world, because there cannot be some kind of true negotiation. What happened in the rest of the world? The emergency of the multipolar world, in which one country can recognize other countries, not like best or worse, but only like other, to recognize the other, like simply other, not bad, not good, not bad, simply other. And in this scenario starts, the negotiation starts. But in the case of the still existing unipolar world, there cannot be negotiation, there cannot be changes, because they believe themselves like the best part of the world, in which stands means, for example, in Europe, where I live, the rulers of the countries believe themselves not only that they are better than the rest of the world, but they truly think themselves like they are better than their own people. So in this stupid situation we live, in which our government believe themselves like the true elite of the world, like the best part of the world, and Europeans are simply stupid dogs that they have to move the tail and keep the orders and fulfill everything on the table and nothing more. And this scheme is extended, is spread to the rest of the world. So, yeah, in the case of this Western idea, in this unipolar world order, must fall, must be disbanded, and then it will start a new world better for all of us. And this is the most important. It's two parallel worlds in the same planet, the multipolar and the unipolar. The unipolar is USA and the satellites, in Europe or Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and nothing more. But the rest of the world is multipolar world order. This multipolarity is rising, is gathering a lot of support, because they can solve the inner problems inside countries, between countries, fulfill a new stage of common interest, not creating color revolution in the neighbor countries or making militias or drug dealers or something in order to destabilize the close countries, the close vicinity or something, but truly the creation of a new type of world relations. So this is on the table, I think, in the world, this unipolar world order in absolutely falling apart, and the creation of the multipolar world order. So, and yes, our people is kidnapped by the government and these tentacles of power, which means medals and money. And with this, they are buying the people. They are buying, for example, journalists or businessmen, companies, and so on. But money cannot buy everything.
Indeed.
Especially cannot buy dignity.
Sure, and of course, when we look at it, we tend to understand how the dogma of superiority is tearing the world apart, and of course, killing globalization and international cooperation, and with the advancement of the internet, which has actually ensured some connectivity. Pundits actually were seeing the world to be more concerted, united, and ensure sustainability sustainable, development at every front. And now, to you, Arnaud DEVELAY, when we look at the philosophy of unipolar system and the multipolar system, which ENRIQUE just highlighted, we begin to think on how we can bring proposals to be able to bring about a compromise or a point of intersection between the two for the betterment of the global world. Which now the question I will appreciate your response is on what do you think are those practical collaborative framework that can be adopted from traditional superpowers and emerging superpowers to be able to build a more fertile or healthy multipolar world without this dogma of superiority in decision making, sanctions and all the like.
Well, that's probably going to be the question which will define international relations for the next 50 years. Obviously, we are coming on the tail end of a 30-year unprecedented expansion of wealth in some areas of the world, to the extent that we are witnessing almost an anthropological cessation from those people who have, owing to their sheer wealth, become as powerful, if not more powerful, than nation states themselves. As Enrique rightly underlined, they've bought everybody. They've bought the media, they've bought the regulatory agencies, they've bought big pharma, they own the justice system, they own the law enforcement, and they basically are in cahoots with the weapons manufacturers. So we have this dramatic imbalance between, let's say, the 1%, but it's probably a lot less than 1%, because 1% would be hundreds of millions, or tens of millions at least at the scale of the world population. We're talking about maybe 1,000 persons, no more, basically allied with each other and somehow coordinating their agenda so as to basically dictate what international relation is going to be. And in their mind, there is no international relation. There is just this sense of, like I say, almost an anthropological evolution. They consider themselves to be basically beyond any kind of reproaches and beneath, the idea that they would need to look inward and make concessions. They consider that the way the world is currently organized is just the logical end result of some kind of Darwinism that was somehow made possible by this period of globalization. And so what I think we're going to be seeing is somehow the end of globalization has to be acted. We're seeing it already right now, because even the digital, you were referring to internet and communication, and as we speak, there is a digital iron curtain falling now. With anything that's not Western media or Western platforms being essentially deplatformed, which actually raises a lot of questions as to why didn't people at the responsibility in Eurasia not anticipate that this would come to be. But those individuals that we are somewhat referring to are not intending to surrender a modicum of the power and influence and wealth that they've amassed and gathered the last 30 years. On the contrary, they are intent on doubling down. And if it takes somehow, a catastrophic event in their point of view to finalize the agenda they have in mind at the global level, those people are perfectly willing to do so. That's the difference between this kind of ideological, messianic, almost illuminated notion of what the world should look like, that those people share, and what we used to have a mere 30 years ago was people who were still rational and being able to acknowledge that they are going to have to work with people who don't necessarily share the same world vision.
Yeah.
So this is a very dangerous period that we are entering, because obviously there are people pushing back, and it's increasing by the day. But obviously it does not seem to dissuade those people who are now running pretty much global institutions into reevaluating their priorities.
Indeed. It's about re-evaluating priorities, and there's a question which was reserved for you, ARNAUD, on the utterances from Emmanuel Macron. While talking earlier on, you quite said that he's a politician that will say one thing now, and in the nearest, the next moment is saying a contrary. And everything that has just been highlighted already by you and the guest on our topic for discussions. We want to look at how, political maneuver is frustrating the call for these, more reforms, practical reforms in the setting of global institutions to, fast track the process of this, new world order. Do we say some of these utterances are reactions of some sort of geopolitical pressure that politicians are actually facing at the moment, and they are making such, utterances to cement their positions, and which having, a very negative consequence on the new doctrine of multipolarity?
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, obviously there is an increasingly important momentum building toward multipolarity. It's happening almost every single day, and it gains in speed and resoluteness. Right now, we have the BRICS who are attracting more and more countries. Some of those countries are traditionally, or have been traditionally, known to be orbiting in the West sphere of influence. But people around the world right now, and that includes leaders, of countries who might have been on the fence, are slowly realizing that the future lies in Eurasia, and we see it now with Turkey, who's expressing its desire to join BRICS, and that's a huge milestone. Why? Because Turkey is the largest army in NATO, save for the United States. So it's an interesting, and watershed development, but it shows that the narrative is slipping out of the hands of those this cast of oligarchs, those transnational oligarchs who basically run, I would say the increasingly shrinking Western world.
Yeah.
And instead of for them to realize, what the trend is, we seem, on the contrary, to be witnessing some kind of a radicalization on their part, and they are all now relying on suppression of free speech and sanctions, galore to anyone who contests their hegemony. And we see it at the European level, we see it in the United States. They are almost, in denial, and they refuse to take act of, what is going on. And so they're going to find themselves increasingly isolated. They are already demographically a minority. They represent 15% of the world population. The G7 is but a shell of its former self. Last year or a couple of years ago, BRICS, and it's likely to increase as BRICS enlarges its membership, as more of an economic output than the G7 could ever dreamed of. So the tide has shifted now, and there's no stopping it. The question now is, how are we going to administer this period of time, which will be required to see an emergence of a new generation of political leaders in the West, because we cannot afford at the same time to somewhat allow the West to basically collapse, on its own without lending a hand. Now, this hand that we are willing to extend will have to be conditioned on certain fundamental and structural adjustments, to be sure. But, again, allowing collapse to be basically the end game strategy objective is fraught with extreme danger, because we're still dealing with people who are, like I say, it's a 500-year window that's closing. And some of those people are basically in the game, quote unquote, on a family level for generations.
Yeah.
They just cannot conceive to basically lose control over, the destiny of the affairs of the world. So
indeed,
this is going to take a lot of subtle diplomacy and a lot of brinkmanship also. We don't want to be kowtowing to them and allow them to impose their diktat. Otherwise, we're not going to move forward on what needs to be done and what needs to be said.
And which is very imperative for what will make the new generation of leaders, especially political leadership in the Western world and even across the global world, where we can write the histories or philosophies of international relations and cooperation to be able to ensure a world of sustainable development. And now, coming back to you, Purnima, why interrogating what will make of the new generation of leadership, as Arnaud just highlighted? Let's bring in the philosophy or the idea of cultural diplomacy as a way of trying to solve the superiority doctrine that we have from the traditional leaders, and of course how this cultural diplomacy can help to neutralize some of these, the ideas for the betterment of, the global world and also international relations. We are aware that India, especially recently, we saw how diplomatic the Prime Minister has been in advocating for a more, diplomatic and, normal ways that can mitigate the level of tensions that the world is having already at this particular moment. What is the role of cultural diplomacy in bringing about, balance of powers, or even trying to, reduce the radicality of ideas coming from the West pertaining decision making at the international fora?
Thank you for your question. And during last 75 years after Second World War, we had different process of development in the global arena. And in this phase, in our generation, we entered into digital phase. And everywhere, Asia to Africa or Europe, all continents connected with the digital system, and social media is very active. And that's why informations are reaching everywhere. So 25 years back, atmosphere was different. Whatever diplomatic messages were coming or diplomatic posts were coming, this was the information only. Now media is having different role. And we saw during last 2.5 years that fake media also playing very important role in this developing stage of the digital economies and digital phase. And real media, social media is also playing very important role. So we understand that world is changing. We are moving towards new world order, new multipolar alliances are developing, and our prime minister, presidents, all governments are in problem. All countries' governments having shaking situation. Either it is America, Russia, India, China, all countries' governments having problem. Now new e-governance system is required. And it is a model for everybody how to develop. China is having population, India is having population, and some countries are having very less population. So how we can make a one model of e-governance? This is a very big question. And now, as you said, that diplomatically, our politicians and bureaucrats are handling matter. Recently, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visit to Russia, and he met with President Putin and discuss closely how we can come together for that peace dialogue. And after that, he visited to Kiev and met with Mr. Zelensky and see the possibility of peace cooperation and discuss in many ways. And I hope very soon some cooperation and mutual interest will be visible on international tables and dialogue will start. So this is a way how new diplomacy and how new generation politics is developing. And this is high time that we should observe in way that it is for all human beings. It is not for nation. It is not an interest of Europe. It is not an interest of Nato. It is not an interest of Russia. It is a comprehensive interest for the human growth. We need such platform on this stage that now we should think that all human beings get their right, sovereignty, dignity, and their peace in their families to develop their next generations. So it is very big responsibility of diplomacy and politics and multinational groups, institutions that to give very peaceful world to next generation. And this is our time and our leadership that we should develop such a stage, such initiatives where we can give peaceful world to next generation.
Indeed, it is about ensuring that the next generation actually have, a safe haven to be able to actually bring forth some sort of, decisions that can prosper the global world. And it's often said that solving it through acceptance. And now we have accepted that, or maybe let's just say that leaders, especially in Europe, are now aware that the global transformation is something that it's unavoidable. And while accepting this, Enrique, how do we then solve these? Geopolitical rivalries that we still see today among these nations in multilateral institutions. How can we manage it to mitigate and, of course, the level of tension, thereby promoting a more larger scope for dialogue that will lead us towards solving some of the problems or crises affecting the global world, crises which are interconnected per se?
Well, in terms of history, it happened a lot of changes through crisis, through total crisis. So now Europe or other Western parts of the world needs this total crisis, needs the total falling of the current system. It's like the change from book to butterfly. It's now the same. We are inside of a trap and we can die in the trap, or we can fly away like butterflies in this historical animal example. So Europe needs this crisis. Europe is in a crisis, but not in the big crisis. And the point of inflection in the case of Europe needs still a new level of crisis. Now it seems that they are trying to create, with the case of Russia, I mean, creating an open war against Russia, but in this case, in this scenario, it will show to the people of the world that in Europe nobody wants to die for the interest of the elite, of the political and economical elite. Yeah, they control the mainstream media, they control the politics, they control the big companies, the big pharma, the big technological companies and so on, but nobody in the social body want to die for these interests. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe they will try to escalate a war, an open war against Russia, or maybe against other countries. It's absolutely stupid when they try to create a trade war against China. Yeah. And imagine, the most of European companies are producing in China, and they try to make a trade war against China, especially Germany. The German cars are mostly produced in China, and they want really to start a trade war against China. Okay. Anyway, they want to try. It doesn't matter, because the same happened with Russia. They started this proxy war in Ukraine, like, no, not us, not Europe, it's Ukraine, Russia, not Europe, but they imposed 15 rounds of sanctions against Russia. And what happened? But for Europe, not for Russia. Russia located in other place the production, the exports, and nothing more. But what happened in Europe? Where are coming from these natural resources, this energy, these mineral resources for chemical industries, for automobile industries, and so on, and for common life? They don't want to create in Europe. They want to export from Middle East, maybe taking a base in the state of Israel, with an attempt of deal with Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and from this part of Middle East to Europe. It's another stupid idea from European leaders. So, current situation. Europe needs the biggest crisis for this metamorphosis, for this absolute change in the political power. Now the elite has a lot of resources, but nobody wants to make an effort for them, or especially nobody wants to die for this interest of the elite in Europe. Both in Europe and in USA or Canada. So they will try to escalate a war, but without the soldiers, because people won't die for them.
Okay. Thank you. And in the same perspective for ARNAUD DEVELAY, we have just 6 more minutes to be together, but then we want to effectively look at the way forward in solving or mitigating the geopolitical rivalry to ensure that we bring about a more concerted diplomatic relations or international relations for a better world. How do you think now Europe can effectively navigate the complex relationship with Russia in light, of course, with Macron's statement, and of course, looking at maybe the position of Europe in the Ukraine crisis and elsewhere around the world?
Well, let me just say that I think Europe is politically becoming completely irrelevant. So I wish I was able to tell you and give you somehow a step-by-step set of recommendations. But the continent is basically being bled dry to sustain the American dollars as we speak. And as we've seen in the last June European elections, basically the same quislings, the same game was reconducted. And so it would seem as if more than ever before, the status quo is going to remain in place. And so the United States, to the extent they might tactically have lost the battle, the Ukraine front, the Ukraine sequence, strategically they've accomplished everything they wanted, which was to basically decouple Europe from Russia for the next foreseeable decades, drained all its substantial part of its industrial potential and strength, thereby removing it as a economic rival. Yeah. And basically, the fact is that the political status quo in Europe, and the fact that every EU member state, save maybe for Hungary, but we see what backlash Budapest is experiencing every time they try to assert their sovereignty. But everybody else is pretty much inside that prison. The European Union is a prison. It was designed as a prison, and it serves exactly this purpose. So there's nothing to be expected, out of Europe, economically, culturally, politically, and at the global stage. Obviously, they are not a factor. So. For the time being, I think, like Enrique said, we have to gear up for very difficult times. Obviously, European populations have lived in such a comfort for the last 70 years that they've completely forgotten what it means to fight for their rights. I mean, for now, basically, European elites are pushing down their throat every single crazy agenda you can think of. And save for a few eruptions here and there, we're not witnessing any kind of major mobilizing movement. So things may have to get worse, and I mean by that, the fridge being empty, so we may see, some kind of pushback, but for the time being, this is not what we are witnessing, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you so much, dear Arnaud, for the great insight. Just 1 minute, let's conclude with you, dear PURNIMA. What prospect for the Europe to align with the realities of global transformation? Just 1 minute, please.
I can observe the most prosperous outcome of this today's conclusion and discussion, that an initiative of Mr. Macron, that now we will move towards a more sustainable new world order for human-centric development. This I would like to say. And all countries should participate in human-centric development process and equally give honor to all human beings, not European hegemony.
Okay. Thank you so much, dear PURNIMA. I wish to appreciate your time, dear PURNIMA, Arnaud DEVELAY, and Enrique RrefOyo, for your great and constructive analysis towards ensuring that the major stakeholders of the world understand the realities of global transformation and bring about new doctrines that will align with the new dispensation to ensure a sustainable world order to inculcate every nation. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for trusting the Pan-African television by taking the rendezvous. It is on this note that we are going to close the curtains of today's edition of Global Insight. But that is not all. Keep having a lovely moment as you remain, keep being informed on the changes occurring in Africa and the world at large for the betterment of the world.